I'm joined in studio by Dr. Francis Onditi. He's an international relations expert. Dr. Onditi, thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. We do understand that some ceasefires and agreements have been reached here. Armed groups in central Mali have signed accords. So who exactly has signed and what is in those accords?
Beatrice, the problem of Mali is not a recent problem, and it's a problem that is multifaceted. We know since time immemorial they've been having, the three groups, the government, the Azawad, and the pro-government that have been, and then many other groups that have been, signing, accords one after the other. The challenge has always been how to uphold the accord and really implement the content of the accord, which in most cases has always been, the power sharing at a local level, but also at the higher level, trying to see whether they can integrate the militia group into the government setting. But I think the challenge that the government of Mali has been going through is what you could call a sandwiched kind of a problem or a challenge. It is that kind of challenge because they're also sandwiched between the Sahel region. The government has to put machinery in place to fight the militia, the extremist group, that is the radical groups that are in the Sahel. But at the same time, they have to focus their effort on fighting or rather integrating the communities. So it's very, very, very unfortunate situation. But I think the international community and the neighboring, countries have a role to play, especially the ECOWAS and other sub-regional organizations in terms of bringing together the different communities.
Let's look at that international support, though, because there has been military support, though, from France, the United Nations, and from Mali's government itself. So what has been the effect of that troop deployment in Mali?
I think, as I said earlier, there is two things. One, there's a lot of skepticism. People are not trusting quite a lot of the external intervention. They think that the external intervention have their own motives. In fact, the more you bring soldiers or peacekeepers from a bilateral arrangement in that part of the world, in Mali, the more we've seen escalation of militia. Then that tells you that we seem not to be getting it right, all right? So you'll find that, the intervention by the French government, for example, their energy was so much sucked into the extremist group, right. The so-called the radical groups who are part of the Al-Qaeda and all that. So then the government has the responsibility to take care of the internal domestic, the conflict between the Dogon and the Fulani, but then they don't have the capacity to implement that. So that kind of divided effort brings a question to whether the international community have a role to play, or rather they have succeeded in providing the needed peace in that country. If you ask me, no. So I think the domestic and the regional effort seem to be maybe a direction that Mali need to take.
So let's look at that domestic effort very briefly, though. What kind of strategies, though, does the Mali government have to calm that situation?
Beatrice, most of the African countries, unfortunately, the approach or the model that they use in such kind of conflicts is power sharing, where you have a few groups of people coming together and agreeing that this community will have this leader, this community will be represented by who, and so on. But that power sharing, intrigues for over 50 years, it has not borne fruits in Africa. But I think what is coming more and more useful is how to integrate communities, or how to create some sort of inclusivity among different communities, so that the Fulani, who are known to be pastoralists, we create what we call human security strategies, or in other words, development strategies that will keep them busy, looking for after their livestock, but also generating income. But the other communities who are sedentary, I think the industries, development of industrial hubs and others could make an effort moving forward. But power sharing, which is normally around intrinsic resources, natural resources, and how to divide and share the national cake, has proved to be less effective in Africa.
Dr. Francis Onditi, a very fragile situation there in Mali, but thank you for your insights.